Hey, welcome back to Coaches at Crown Brew Getting Coffee. We're glad you're joining us again. Appreciate all your support. As always, we want to thank Crown Brew for letting us use their facility to film. I want to thank Ross and Abby, as always, Swinford Media, for being here and doing this. I want to give a plug, too. Ross is super talented, and he does some things for SIU Athletics. He does this for me and has the last 2 years. He's also doing weddings. And if you have a need to have a wedding video and have your story kept and something you can remember by, this guy can really do it. He'll put some information on the screen for you to look at, but contact Ross. If you're getting married soon or you know someone that is and you want it done right, Ross can take great care of you. I want to thank my buddies at Adrenaline Fundraising. Matt and Jeff are phenomenal at helping coaches raise money, and they sponsor this podcast. And they helped me for years, as I've said every week, and they'll help you no matter your organization, sports, clubs, whatever. You want to raise money? Talk to those two guys. They can take care of you. My guest today is a longtime high school football coach, Kelly Glass from Massac County High School. Kelly Glass is my friend. Kelly Glass was my rival. He's one of the men that I brag to others about because he stood by me during one of my lower times in the coaching profession when a lot of people were silent. He was by my side and still giving me encouragement. And I want to welcome Kelly Glass to our program.
Honored to be here, buddy.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
You coached high school football for 36 years. I believe one of the most respected, transformative, and beloved coaches in Southern Illinois history. There's and the sleeveless shirt, the Fu Manchu. It's part of the iconic image that you left. And I think that's a symbolic mark. But I think, Kelly, and I'll say this later, the mark you really left was right here inside kids. And I'm honored to have you here today. And your wife, Kathy, has joined us on the side over there. So she's your partner in this, as my wife, Tracy, is. We're going to start and talk about your bio a little bit. And I want to say one more thing. I asked you for a bio. You sent me a picture of a legal pad with you. It was written, which is awesome. But there was more on there about your family and your love of hunting than there was about football. And that says everything about you. So let's jump in. Let's talk about your childhood. Tell me where you grew up. Tell me about your childhood, your parents. Let's go.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Coach.
Yes.
The feeling is mutual. And we didn't plan this, prepare this. And so what comes from you is from the heart, and what will come from me in the heart. And
Amen.
I've said for a long time that, I think I started before you and had some decent years with them. Then I met Kerry Martin and the best of the best. And I still think, and I say to this day, we tried to get you to McCracken and double dip and what Kathy wanted me to do, but the best high school coach, considering everything, that I know was Kerry Martin.
Oh, you're kind.
And I mean that. And I'm honored to be here with you.
Yeah.
But I grew up in Metropolis, which is Massac County, and had a mom and dad, and the same mom and dad, and I never heard them have an argument.
Wow.
My mom was a stay-home mom. My dad was an Army veteran in the Korean War, and, life was simple. Nothing about phones, just eat supper at home every night and breakfast at home and lunch at home. And what my dad said was the gospel. Yeah. And I went to school there. I played ball there. And Kathy and I, with our boys, still live there. So,
what sports did you play?
I played basketball and baseball and football.
Yeah.
And my freshman year, we just wanted to be competitive, just like you, Coach. Wanted to compete, and I don't know why I did this because I was terrible, but my freshman year, I got to play a game or two of varsity basketball, not football for sure. But I went out for golf in the spring just because I wasn't any good. But I earned a varsity letter, and I ain't got that letter to today. So I would have had that varsity letter. I don't know why I did that, but really basketball, football, and baseball. And I encourage kids to do that. I think once it's kind of over, you're ready for the next one.
It's true.
Yeah,
it's
it keeps
true.
the fire burning.
My grandson's playing 4 sports right now, those 3 in soccer, and he just goes from one season to the next. And I said, at this age, and he does. He just goes seasonal, loving every minute of
Sure.
it, having fun.
You know what college recruiters ask us?
Yes.
What other sports the kids play?
Oh, every
It's a big
time.
deal.
It is a big deal.
Sure.
I saw a statistic about these NFL players getting drafted, and the vast majority, 80-some%, I think, were multi-sport athletes.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
yeah, we've gotten too specialized. I don't think that's been good for our kids.
I don't either. They get burnt out, Coach, I think.
You have siblings?
I do. I have a brother.
Yeah.
And he played golf at SIU. He was a good athlete, and he's a little bit younger than me, and he still lives in Metropolis, too. And no sisters, just one brother.
Yeah. Was high school successful programs? Was the basketball winning, football winning back then?
I think my dad answered that best. When they asked me twice to be the football coach, what became Massac, a combination of Brookport and Metropolis. And the first time I didn't do it. The second time I went and asked my dad, should I do this, Dad? He said no. He said, it's been a basketball town for 100 years.
Right.
Don't do that, Kelly. So, we've always been good at basketball, tradition, and football. There's times I thought I had it, but I didn't have it, and off and on baseball. And but it was quite a challenge, and I took my dad's advice as a challenge, tell you the truth.
Yeah. The first job I ever got was at Sparta, and I called with great excitement my high school coach to tell him that I was following in his footsteps. I'm going to be a high school football coach. He said, Sparta. He said, you'll die there.
I know.
So I didn't, but I tell that story. I've told it a couple times now, and I said, but it motivated me. Like, I'm not going to die there. And actually, it kind of was a springboard. And I coached in Flora, too. And Flora was the same challenge that I had no choice, but I had to have a job. I went to Flora, and it was a basketball town. And basketball was number one. And I very quickly understood that that's okay. I got to accept that.
I'm not sure I ever accepted that.
I wouldn't say I shouldn't, maybe accept's not the right word. I knew that was the realization that I was going to be dealing with. I was only there 3 years, and we had some good success, but basketball, he had been there a long time, a very successful coach, Tom Welch, and I had to navigate those waters and find a way to get kids out, because it was tough.
Me too.
Basketball was a big deal.
Yes, you got to be very creative.
Yeah, be very creative. Let's talk about, you play high school sports, college offers?
I did. I played, I didn't think I was big enough to play football. I played quarterback and safety just like Jake did. But I took a beating my senior year, and our equipment wasn't great, as you know, back then. And so I did play college basketball for 2 years, Coach. And it was a job.
Yeah.
And I think they owned me, and I lost a little bit of enjoyment in it. And Kathy and I got married, and I actually went to work and finished school that way. And my ambition was to be a truck driver. And I was a teamster. And for 3 years, I drove a semi and delivered freight, loaded my truck and unloaded my truck. And that's what I intended to do. And how that came about as a coach is kind of interesting too.
So who were your coaching? Did you have coaching influences growing up? Were there
Absolutely.
guys that you said, but did you ever think about following in their footsteps and being a coach when you were in high school?
Well, Chuck Durham, Coach Durham, who coached me, and then I coached for him, and then he coached with me a long time, was a great influence on me. He was very tough. He's from Benton, Illinois, and very demanding, and taught me a lot about football, and also taught you a lot about how to be a man.
Yeah.
And we kind of idolized him a little bit. We had an undefeated season, believe it or not, at Metropolis when I was in high school. And so Coach Durham, absolutely, to answer your question, he took the head job back at Massac, and he said he would do it if I would come and help him. And I couldn't tell my coach no. Yeah. That's how it happened.
Okay, yeah. It's funny. We had some reunions with our high school teammates and our head coach one year, and it doesn't matter what age you are, he is still that head coach that feeling of him being your head coach. It doesn't matter what age you are, he's still Coach Buddy. He's still the head guy.
Coach, that is right. I'm not going to call him Chuck Durham.
Yeah.
I call him Coach Durham.
Yeah.
I'm not going to call Kerry Martin. He's as close as we are. You're Coach Martin. I have that much respect for people that attempt to coach.
You know, that's right. And that's, I mentioned before we went on the air, that's really part of the motivation behind this, was to honor this profession, to let people know and let them see behind that curtain and how, what coaches are really all about, and stories like that. And I remember someone taking the microphone at one of those reunions, and he said their body was kind of broken down now. This guy had been a fullback, and he was a little overweight now, and he took the microphone and he said, but there's only one man. If he said, boys, we got a game tomorrow, pad up, he goes, I'd pad up and play. Sure. And I said, amen, I would too. And that's, I think we know as coaches that you're in that position. Kids are going to look up to you, and there's greater responsibility that comes with that. My
part of that kind, I've had guys that played for me that say, boy, I wish I could do that. I wish I could be that. And I've hired some of them. And they said it must be neat to stand on the sideline and all them people and blah, blah, blah. It ain't going to last a year or two. Because, Coach, you lose too. Yeah, that's right. And then you got to talk to your team when sometimes you don't have an answer to those. That's right. There's two sides to what you and I have done. Yeah, I think, and how you handle that is just as important. That defines you. You got to handle the success. You got to handle the failure. It's part of it. You know, and I think you're right. Some wide-eyed kids think that it's all going to be fun and excitement. I heard John Gruden say one time when he stepped away for a while, they said, well, what keeps you from going back? He goes, when I'm done broadcasting a Monday night football game, I walk down to the losing locker room to remind myself that it's not all the success. That he said, that simple being in that losing locker room was all I needed to stay away from the game, at least for a few years. Coach, I've lost, Kathy will tell you this. She's told me so many stories to tell you, but I've lost on Friday night and mowed the yard all day on Saturday in the rain to avoid everybody. Yeah. Because you feel like you let everybody down. I know. My wife will tell you that if we lost, I wouldn't go out to eat. I wouldn't go uptown. Because like you said, I felt the weight of disappointment I had left. And my wife was the wiser one, and she said, you know, they've moved on. They're doing their own thing today. They're not mad at you. And I felt like, yeah, but I let them down. And I carried that weight. It was bigger to us than it was most of them. Sure. But true story. Jake's senior year, and you know, we went that stretch when I played you, and we were really good, and we played in a hurricane at Heron and got beat 9-7. And I was crushed. I walked the track all night. I didn't go to church on Sunday. By Sunday night, Jake was a senior in mine. I said, Jake, and I was mad. I said, apparently this is as important to you as it is to me. And Jake said, what do you mean, Dad? And he was as great a player as I ever had. And I said, well, Jake, we got beat. You just went about your business. And Jake looked at me and said, Dad, there's more to my life than football. Amen. And I don't know that I've learned it yet, but I get it. Well, it's hard. And I think you want it to be what you did, not who you are. That's right. You know what I mean? And that's hard. Don't get me wrong. That's easy to say. But when you get caught up in the what and the how and the outcomes, we sometimes lose sight of the why we got in this in the first place. I know. And as I got older, I think I got better at remembering why I'm doing this. And it's about impacting young men through the game of football, right? Absolutely. And if I could keep that in mind, it helped me get back on track. It didn't make it any better to lose, but it got me back on track. You know? Absolutely. So you start your coaching career at Massac. Do you remember how old you were when you started the head coaching job? Early 20s. Yeah, okay. You're In the first 2 years, I went to Jefferson grade school. And one day I was literally driving a semi delivering freight. And the school had started. The coach at the grade school got dismissed. And they called me and asked me if I wanted to do it. And me and Kathy had Toby, and I told my dad, I said, no. And my dad said, you're going to go out there and try it. So they put me in the 7th grade room the next day with 9 subjects and 7 workbooks, coaching every sport the boys had. Yeah. Basketball, no football. We didn't have football. And so I went one day. And I promise you, there was people in the room smarter than me. One of the guys makes missiles today. He makes rockets. And I told my dad, I ain't doing this. No way am I doing this. And my dad said, yes, you are. This truck line may not be here.
Yeah.
And almost 50 years later,
Yeah.
you know,
That was
and
the start.
from that, after those 2 years, Coach Durham took the job at high school back, and he said, I'll do it if you'll bring Coach Glass to the high school.
Yeah.
And that's when I started at the high school as a varsity offensive coordinator. Probably not qualified, not a whole lot older than my players, and with a whole lot to learn.
We have a lot of similarities in that way. I started really young as a head coach, and I was learning some things not to do, and I only knew what my high school coaches had done that I thought were good coaches.
Sure.
And so I just copied what they did. I ran the option offense because that's what we ran in high school, and I didn't know very much, Kelly. I was blessed because I inherited at Sparta, my 1 year I was there, a really good group of kids.
Wow.
I mean, and that springboarded my career, and I always wonder if that group hadn't been there and that first year had not been very good, what the difference would have been. But I owe a lot to that first class at Sparta. But I was going to ask you, so when you call yourself the offensive coordinator, like I was, what did you run? Just what you had learned?
Kind of what we did in high school: power football, misdirection, play action pass.
Yeah.
And, you know, almost always double tight with all the backs in the backfield.
Yep.
And
Yep.
kind of what Coach Durham had taught me, because, you know, I called the offense, and I couldn't believe he let me do it, Coach, to tell you the truth. But I did that some as the quarterback in high school.
Yeah.
So, and I inherited a bunch of pretty mean, tough kids too. And
That's always
one
good.
kid on that team played for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh, really?
I don't know if I've ever had one since.
Oh, wow.
So similarity. You know,
Yeah.
I had some guys that fight you.
Yeah.
They were pretty tough. And
Yeah.
so, you know, but it's some of the best of times, some of the worst of times too, Coach. You know, we in that process of early on, we had a kid that was severely ill after a game, and he had brain surgery that night, and we never know what caused it, but we thought he was going to die. He didn't. He's alive today. That got me out of coaching for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
I thought, if that's what this is like.
Really?
Yeah, and I did 3 years there with Coach Durham, and this happened. We spent the whole night at the hospital, and he made it, but boy, it hurt.
Yeah.
You know, and I questioned football, and is this worth a life?
Did it happen because of football?
They never wanted
don't
to.
know.
But after the game, everything started unraveling, and before the night was over, he was having brain surgery.
Oh, my gosh.
And it had a huge impact. We watched that video a million times, and it was a mess. And you know, I'm young and don't really understand, and it had an impact on me. For 2 years, I did not coach.
So what made you come back?
They had asked me 2 or 3 times, and I agreed to come back as a freshman, sophomore coach.
Gotcha.
In my second year, my JV team was undefeated, luckily. And in December, we needed a coach, and they asked me, and that'd been the second time because after this happened with Coach Durham,
Yeah.
he quit.
Yeah.
He quit. And I understand why.
Sure.
And so they asked me, and I said, no. So this is the second time they asked, and they asked me in December, and it took till May to say yes. And I got this now, right, Coach? You know, I've been a varsity coach,
Yeah.
and I was undefeated the year before, and we went 2-7. We started the next year 1-4. And on the way home from South Hopkins, Kentucky, on the bus, I wrote my resignation. I'm done. This is not for me. It's affecting my family. Look at Kathy. It's affecting my family. And my coaches talked me into staying.
Yeah.
And I said, guys, if I do, I tried to be the head coach. I tried to let somebody have special teams, somebody have all, and I took it all back, right or wrong.
Right.
And I said, just so that if it fails, it's on me. It's not on you guys. And I took it back, Coach, and we went 5-4.
Yeah.
So then the next year 8-1, and the next year 9-0, and the next year 7-2. So I think then a lot of years I proceeded with, now when this group of kids graduates, I'm going to be done. They're really special.
Yeah.
But that next group kept coming.
I know. That's the thing. And I almost kept coaching because of this group coming when I was here.
Yeah.
Because you keep thinking, it could be special, you know.
I know.
It can be tough to walk away. And I finally realized that's going to keep happening forever if you just don't make a
Well,
decision.
the only reason I did and left Massac and went to McCracken, the guy at our TRS was a good friend of mine. Kathy and I went to see him, Nick Stabler, and he said, Coach, you worked for nothing last year. My parents were ill, her mother was ill, and Jack Haskins had already called 2 or 3 times. And so I decided to do it and go to McCracken as the associate head coach. I don't even know what that is. I still don't know what that is. And by me doing that, Kathy didn't have to work no more.
I got you.
And I stayed long enough. I built another retirement up over there. So
good decision.
Oh yeah.
So let's talk about culture a little bit. It's a buzzword among coaching today, about building a strong culture. And way before that word became trendy and cool, Kelly Glass had what I think was an amazing culture around his football program. Sometimes they use the word family. I don't think I know of a program in Southern Illinois that embodied that word more than yours. And I could feel it when I was there. I played 7-on-7 there. We coached against each other. We talked the offensive systems later on. We'll talk about Tony Franklin. But what was that? Is that just something that came naturally, and you tapped into that? Tell me a little bit about the culture you built there in that program.
Coach, that's a gift from God.
Amen.
It's a part of our gifts. And there's a lot of kids in Massac that all they had was football.
Yeah.
A lot of them end up living with us. That was very important to me.
Yeah.
And a lot of nights, I bet my pickup truck was full of kids getting a ride home.
Yeah.
And they would come to the house. And a lot of them had dads, but I wanted so much to be an extension of their dad because they trusted me to have their boy. And that culture was natural. Coach, when I first started, I thought the way to motivate you was what kind of Coach Durham taught me. I'm going to run you till you drop.
Yeah.
And that changed. I think motivation became for me and is today loyalty. I don't want to let you down, and I hope you don't want to let me down.
Relational,
And
loyalty, great word.
We love each other, and I hope that when you're done, that our relationship just grows. And Coach, I've coached with some pretty big time people at McCracken. And I've coached with guys that when they're done with you, they're done with you. And I hated that.
Yeah.
And I didn't never want to do that. So I wanted a culture that winning is important, but it's not an all cost thing. And we're still going to be together and united when it's over, and tomorrow's going to come. And most of the time I was talking to me because it hurt me because I felt like I had let them down.
Yeah.
And but our culture absolutely was, it became an event on Friday night. And it wasn't a Mayfield event where you better win or you're in trouble.
Right.
It was a social event. And sometimes I wish they would have hollered at us and maybe got on to me more. But if we won, it was okay. It was lost, okay. But it's where you caught up at the week, and the place was packed. And man, it was a blessing. And I tried to feed my team, give them a jacket on after their sophomore year, ride a cruiser bus. Kathy told me to tell this story to answer that question.
Of course.
Not all those kids did I get. Some of them I lost.
Yeah.
And most of the time it was because of school or grades or academics, and it would frustrate me. And I developed a thing without telling the whole story. If I lost you, I started giving kids $50. Have you heard this story?
No.
I would give them $50. And I'd say, put that in your pocket. It has nothing to do with sports. But when you graduate from this high school, give it back to me. And I hope every time you put your hand in your pocket, it reminds you that you promised me that you're going to graduate. You know?
Yep.
And some of them spent it the same day, and some of them, like Tim Fairfield, didn't graduate. And I had football camp in the summer, and he showed up, and he's never been whipped, Coach. He's a man, but he never started nothing.
Yeah.
But he finished everything.
Yeah.
And he showed up and he brought me that $50.
Wow.
And he went to Shawnee and earned a credit. We both cried, and trouble found him again.
Yeah.
He either had to go to prison or go to the Marine Corps. He went to the Marine Corps. He became one of only 400 Marines in the entire nation that could do what he did.
Wow.
After several years, 2 Marines in dress blue came in my weight room, and they had something for me, and I thought one of my ex-players had got killed in combat.
Yeah.
And they gave me a poster. And, sorry. I opened that poster, and he was the poster person for the Marine Corps that year.
Yeah.
The entire Marine Corps.
Wow.
And on that poster, it said, "Coach, didn't imagine what a $50 can do."
Wow. That's beautiful.
Now, when he, after 22 years, retired from the Marine Corps in Parris Island, they invited, look at Kathy cried. They invited me and Kathy, and we went. And he got to talk, and he presented me a Marine coin.
Oh my gosh.
And so, culture,
Yeah.
that's what I try to develop. It didn't always work, Coach.
No, I know. Well, it never does, and that's the point, though. But it's the attempt, it's the effort that you made, and it makes us vulnerable. You put yourself out there, and then when they don't make it, you've left yourself vulnerable and open, but you keep doing it because those successes make it all worthwhile. And you were doing that before culture was cool and trendy. That's what I'm saying. And I knew it. I didn't know that story. I didn't know the level at which you did it, but I knew you were doing it. And I don't know, Kelly, if I could replicate it anywhere because your situation at Massac was unique, but I tried. I wanted that family feeling that you created. And I thought it was all the success you had and the respect you get. But that, to me, was the sweet spot of your legacy.
You know who you can't fool? You can't fool teenagers.
No. They see right through it.
That's right.
You better be authentic.
They know if you love them or not.
They do.
You know?
Amen.
Do. So,
and I think the coaches today are dealing with a kid today that you can fool even less than when we coached. I think kids today, they're wide-eyed. They know way too much.
You know what's made it tougher, though? Yeah. And I know this is one of the talking points, but social media has, it's got to be awful for coaches. In a way, that technology allows you to scout and get ready.
Yeah.
But people can get on there and they don't know what they're talking about, Coach.
No, and I think that's part of this motivation for this was I think it was too easy for the criticism and not know the whole story.
No doubt.
And this is almost 40 coaches interviews and just people being able to hear your heart and your dedication and commitment. They might have thought somebody somewhere, it was about winning. It's never just about winning. Winning matters. It's never just about that.
Yeah, when we wanted to win, me and you wanted to win so bad.
Of course.
So bad, but you know, I promise you, in you and I's eyes, there's more to it than that.
Amen. Next thing, when you were at Massac County, let's talk about rivals. Who was your rival? Did it change over time? Was it Benton one year here, or was there always
always Harrisburg and Benton? Always.
Yeah.
I mean, always.
Yeah.
And I wanted to beat you and all, but it wasn't the same. And finally in '96, we beat Alway at Harrisburg.
Yeah.
And we beat them. You know, in 88, 89, and 90, we made the playoffs. Massac never been to the playoffs. And guess who beat me in the first round? One of those years I was undefeated, Harrisburg. So in '96, we beat them. Yeah. And we beat them good. Yeah. And my dad said to me after the game, "I can finally die a happy man." That is a true story. Yeah. Yeah. So, but Benton and Harrisburg, because, Jeff Roper did a great job, and Alway.
Good teams.
And the competition and the desire to beat each other was phenomenal. And
I thinking back, a lot of close games.
There was.
But sometimes you just didn't get that. But I remember how heated some of those rivalries were. And
they were.
Southern Illinois football was really good.
Kind of like Marion and Heron. You lived it.
Yeah, I did.
You lived it.
I did. If you had to talk about your coaching philosophy, and I'm talking the X's and O's side of it, You are run the ball first guy for most of your career, correct?
Yes, absolutely. And I always liked offense more.
Yeah.
And I always figured if I was going to beat you, I just outscore you. Coach Durham that I played for's philosophy was let them hurry up and score so we can get the ball back so we can score. So I don't know if I adapted that totally,
Yeah.
but I did. And we probably worked on it more than we did defense. It's more fun, you know.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to tackle, and I always emphasized a lot blocking and tackle. And I was a guy, we hit in practice on Tuesday and Wednesday, Coach.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Full gear.
Yeah.
Sometimes too much. I got Roundtree hurt
Yeah.
his junior year before we played Vandalia in practice.
Yeah.
Made me mad. And I get to McCracken, and we never hit.
Yeah. It's changed a lot.
We thud up.
Yeah.
And on Friday night, we'd say, man, we can't tackle. And I'd say, well, I wonder why. You know, that isn't born being able to tackle. Tackle's heart and desire.
Yeah.
So my philosophy, I always wanted to try to fool you too.
Yeah.
You know, but I believed in power football, but I always wanted a trick play, and that's probably not right. Because that's not execution, that's just fun.
I love it though.
But, you know, I did too. And defense, I wanted to tackle good. And my philosophy really was I wanted my players to know that I'm more than their coach.
Yeah.
And so is Kathy.
Yeah.
You know Jarrell that played, Jarrell Johnson, All-American quarterback in '09. He lived with me and Kathy.
Yeah.
You know Steve Krim that he lived with me and Kathy and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So
you had you were able to keep a lot of your staff for several years, correct? Or was it a lot of transition? But
I did. What happened to me though, there were times I had, like you guys, I had a phenomenal staff. And then I would lose Brad Goodley to go be a head coach.
Right.
And I would lose Joe Clark to go be a head coach.
Yep.
And I cannot emphasize enough in football, you need good help.
Yeah, it's true. And this has been a great platform to emphasize the fact that how much coaching staffs mean. This is not something we can do on our own. And I know some coaches that really take the reins and run the program, and they are 90% of what I could not do that. I didn't have those kind of gifts to be able to coach every element of the game. I did early on because I had to.
Me too.
But once I started trusting the guys around me,
Yeah.
it was a relief to let some of that go and let them use their gifts.
But you look what you had. You had JD and Dennis Druss and Jeff Sema. And man, these guys.
Oh.
And Toby was my best coach. He never had a losing season, my son Toby.
Yeah.
And when I got Coach Rice with me, he left Washington, D.C., writing the programs for missiles that are fired off of fighter jets.
Yeah.
For me to give him $3,000 to help me coach football.
That's a sell job right there.
but he was a good one, and he
Yeah.
stayed with me the whole time. And Mike Archer came over, but I wasn't able to, keep the same guys. But a part of you thinks, thank you. These guys left and became a head coach.
Of course,
that's what they wanted to do.
That's right.
But I always told them, well, guys, please disagree with me if you want to, but let's have the door shut when you do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it in town.
Amen.
And don't do it anywhere else.
Not for the players.
You're not going to be coaching for me.
Yeah.
In all due respect, I like you, but it's not. So
let's talk about our era a little bit. We played each other in '94, my first year at Carterville. Played again in '95, '96. Had two great games in '96. Man, we had to.
No, we didn't.
No,
we didn't.
Well, we played you week 2, and we felt like the measuring stick for our Black Diamond season would go through you.
And we scored the first play of the game.
You did.
Coach.
And I said, here we go.
But Coach, we were good.
I know you were. We were worried.
Well, we beat Sullivan and we beat Vandalia, but you were better. And you beat us just like you beat Chicago Canelan in a state championship game. And I stood on the sideline with you doing that.
Spring Valley Hall.
Yeah. And nobody rooted for you more than I did. And
I know
was
that.
Honored to be there.
I know, and I love that. And I think about you were we knew that if as good as you were, we thought if we could beat Massac County, we got a chance to be special.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, the worst thing was having. So I'll tell you the story. We're playing Murfreesboro round 2. and we win. They miss a field goal late. And
They're really good.
And they're really good. Well, they matched up great with us.
I know.
Size, speed.
I know.
So we're celebrating. It is bedlam. It's freezing cold. That I'm sure it was cold where you played week 2.
We were in Vandalia.
You were in Vandalia. We're celebrating. And biggest win maybe of my career at that time. And somebody walks up while we're on the field rejoicing, and they said, "You're playing Massac. They just won." From that moment, I did not enjoy anything until our game the next Saturday, because I did not want to replay you. Because in my opinion, after we played you week 2, you got better.
We did, but Vandalia was a state wrestling champ the year before. We beat them 26-2, but they beat us up, Coach. And Hammer was hurt, and Matt Helton was hurt, and Alan Walter was hurt, and Roundtree was hurt.
I remember every one of those names.
That is not an excuse.
No, I know, but
we received the kickoff, and we ran inside trap, which we didn't do a whole lot, and Roundtree could have walked in the end zone and maybe made the day different, and he didn't.
yeah.
I don't know what happened, but he fell, or you got his shoe. And then, those kids that we had treated with state-of-the-art treatment, trying to get them ready,
Yeah.
they couldn't last a whole ball game before they were limping. And that's not an excuse, because you were the state champ. But I wish I could have played you with my ball team.
Well, and one of the things that I've said a lot of times is you got to realize, and I think some people on the outside don't understand, staying healthy is part of winning that title.
No doubt.
We didn't lose a single player to a serious injury until the 4th quarter of the championship. We played 14 games and didn't lose anyone to a serious injury.
That's a blessing.
That's lucky.
But, Boswell broke one against you guys.
He did.
And Mark Chastain caught him.
Yeah.
I knew right then, because I thought Boswell and those kids were the state champs in the 4x1.
Yeah.
And I thought, you got what I got. You got big old tackles, and I always kind of struggled with big linemen. I had to take a kid that was probably not a lineman
And make him
a lineman, and hope he could play low and get off the ball and hold and grab and tackle
Yeah.
on offense.
Yeah.
But I had to do that too much, I think. So,
I've been through that too, and that's not.
but I still think I think we had a chance to get you in '97.
Well, that's my next question was, let's talk about 97, because we lost a lot. And in 97, we were set to play again week 2. And
I had almost everything back.
I know, yeah.
And we had a teacher strike, and, I stood up at that meeting with 160 plus administrators and teachers, and I gave a speech, and, me and 3 others voted no, don't strike. When we strike, we had to forfeit some games. And I don't know if we'd have beat you, but I think that, we had a good chance, and that is, I can't think about that time, because I get aggravated still, because I said that's the only chance those seniors had.
Yeah. It's tough when those strikes happen. That's why I wanted to touch on that, because I remember us having conversation about how much it was hurting those kids. You and I get other seasons.
Sure, I do.
And we miss those opportunities when they happen. I've been through it through other coaches. Carmi went on strike one year after they played us at Flora, and they struck the whole season. You guys did come back, right?
We came back and got to play 4 or 5 games.
Yeah.
And
But it's not the same.
it's not the same. No, no, it's not. And Jim Muir, first time I ever heard the name Jim Muir, and he called me from Benton a bunch about it, and he made me mad. And I wouldn't talk to him a while because of it, and I found out through that he's a good man, and him and I are the bestest of friends now.
Yeah.
And why am I telling that goofy story? Coach, so much stuff that we have now, you and I, you know what the avenue to get here was? Football.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the avenue.
Yeah.
The closeness, and so the game is a whole lot bigger than who beats who. And it took me a long time, and I'm not sure I still, if I'm coaching Sam's team right now, which I am, and we're playing somebody on the turf. Everybody's got turf now.
Sure.
In a 5th grade football game, it's as important to me as playing Kerry Martin in the quarterfinals at Carterville.
Yeah.
we're wound that way,
Oh,
Coach.
that's in us.
And
Yeah.
football is an avenue to so many things. I think that God had a plan for us, Coach.
Amen.
I really
I
do.
felt like I don't know what else I would have done well in this world, but the Lord guided me into the right profession at least.
Yeah, well, I didn't always do it right, and I look back and it's like sanctification as a Christian. It's a work in progress always.
Always.
I look back at 1990 and I had as good a back as there was in Southern Illinois. We were on a 23-game regular season winning streak. So we were good. And this kid could play, and his brother had played for me. And he was already a little bit in trouble. He got into it with Jeff Johnson in the weight room. And Jeff come marching into my football office and said, either Richard goes or I go. I kicked Richard off the team. And I shouldn't have. He ended up in federal prison, Coach.
Yeah.
And if I know then what I learned later, I'd have told Jeff and Richard, go home today. We'll talk about this tomorrow.
Yeah.
I did it wrong, Coach.
Yeah.
I did it wrong a bunch.
Yeah, I think back on those early decisions that I made, and you can't get them back, and you feel like that's not the best way to have handled. I know I have those regrets too, and I get asked, do you have any regrets? I'm like, of course I do.
Dadgum straight.
Yeah, of course. You go through another stretch, and then we'll move on to McCracken. But you went through another stretch. You joined the Tony Franklin offensive system like we did. And you had some dudes that we're no longer playing, and I'm watching from afar. I'm at Marion now, and you went through some dudes and some really good players. Let's talk about that transition to the spread offense by Kelly Glass.
Well, probably Kerry Martin had as much influence on me of that as I need to learn this. And it's worked okay for me for years. Am I an idiot to change? And we went to Tony Franklin and learned and studied like crazy.
Yes.
And am I doing the right thing? We're going to get in the spread and hurry up. And but I had a 6'5" quarterback.
I remember.
I had two 6'4", 6'5" receivers, and I had a good running back. And it seemed to fit. And that first year in 2007 that you and I both had 5,000 yards of offense that year, Coach.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody in the state did but us.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun.
Yeah.
Coach, and I could get a basketball kid that could run and catch and put him out here, and he could dance and look pretty, and he never really had to have much contact.
No, that's true.
And I kind of utilized that some.
It worked. Yes.
And you had to have the personnel to do it.
Yeah.
But it was fun.
Yeah.
And they didn't. I never gave a kid a playbook.
Yeah.
I thought it was my job to teach it.
Yeah.
But when Tony Franklin come along, I could holler red 22.
It's on his wristband.
They could stink and read. They could do it.
I know, it's amazing.
And the first game ever that we did this, and I'm a nervous wreck, and we go to Graves County. That's Graves County.
Yeah.
We won 63-0.
You said good decision.
Holy cow, and man, it was fun.
Yeah, I wish I could have watched you play, because I heard so much about those teams and those athletes, and you had the right personnel, those big receivers, the big tall quarterback, and that was an exciting. And I remember we went and we did some chalk talk, some old whiteboard stuff, and you were giving me some great stuff that we ran back and put in, and it was awesome.
Well, I learned from you too, and it's funny that you say this right now. Zach Kester was the quarterback on that team. The same time you had Matt Brown.
That's right. Same time.
We got a good memory, don't we?
We do. Yeah, we do.
But anyway, on the way up here, I was afraid I was going to be late because Zach Kester's mother, who's in my Sunday school class, called me. She works at the VA here.
Okay. Yeah.
And she was in a panic. Zach's dad, Jess, was having, I'm afraid, a stroke. Oh. And she wanted me to go by me and Kathy and get him and whatever we were off. So I don't know where that's coming. But it's funny that we talk about Kester right now.
Yeah.
And why'd she call me? Because of football.
Yeah.
Because of football.
Once a coach, always a coach.
The closeness that we developed there.
Relationships.
So, it is.
You leave Massac County. Tough decision, or you already mentioned the fact that it was probably the right thing to do at the time. No. And you went to McCracken. Let's talk about your role there. You started off as the associate head coach. And then how long did you do that?
5 years.
Good experience?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
It was, Coach, I had a terrible time deciding because I didn't want nobody to think I wasn't loyal. I'd never done playing or coaching anything other than in Massac.
Gotcha.
And I didn't want to let nobody down and blah, blah, blah. But like I said, it allowed Kathy to not have to work no more. But I thought, I knew one person, Jack Haskins.
Yeah.
And I thought, I've done this 36 years. I got this. No, I didn't.
Yeah.
School of 2000.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that I've never experienced before. And Coach playing Tillman game 1 and Mayfield game 2 is bigger than life.
Yeah. It's huge.
And it's Harrisburg and Benton with politics and money involved. Big money.
Yeah.
And it was big to the community. And we played those first 2 games and we took 2 buses.
Yeah.
2 buses. Starters rode a bus, and
Yeah.
I never experienced that.
Yeah.
Most of my guys had to play both ways, and Tillman beat us a point, Mayfield beat us a point or 2, and I thought, what have I done? And I get back home from Mayfield, and Joe Morris is a great friend of mine, like he is yours.
Absolutely.
And still to this day, we're
Absolutely.
good buddies and all. But you take Reedland, Lone Oak, and Heath and put them together and make one high school, and we're the palace in the sky. We're going to beat Louisville Trinity and St. X. No, we're not.
No.
We still got to get those kids to realize they're McCracken.
Yeah.
And I stood up on the bus when we got back and kind of poured my heart out. And I teared up and they teared up. And I felt like that night they accepted Coach Glass. And I felt like a part of it.
Yeah.
And the good Lord allowed us. We won the next 9. And Coach, that offensive line and defensive line was the size of SIU. I'd never seen anything like it.
Wow. Yeah.
It was a total different world. Coach, we practiced on AstroTurf, rain, mud, nothing stopped us.
Yeah.
We never hit.
Had an indoor place, right?
We had an indoor facility also.
Yeah.
And we had over 100 kids. And I just learned a lot. But the way those people, and I did FCA with my team every week, and the way those people accepted me and Kathy and brought us in, some of my best buddies in the world are still from that. And to answer your question, really, associate head coach, I didn't really have to be the bad guy.
Oh. Right.
For years, me and you had to be the bad guy.
Yep.
The buck stopped with us.
Yep.
It didn't really always stop with me.
I got you.
Which was, Jake reminded me, that's why you went over there, Dad. That's a good thing. That's a refreshing thing.
Yeah.
So.
And the mentorship began, which
It did.
you did for the team, but you also did in the school, correct?
I did. And I was still a dean there, and, kind of nothing was a problem till it got to me. So I was able to connect with males and females. And there's really a lot of good people in Kentucky.
Yeah.
My dad told me that.
Yeah.
My dad was a big influence on me. He said, when you go over there and you ask people directions, they don't tell you. They get in their vehicle and they tell you to follow them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I learned that when I went over there. So it was good time. And I was able to build up another little retirement over there too. And
Was the transition to associate head coach in a much bigger school, that's a big difference than being the hometown head coach at Massac County. I'm sure that was that, as you're saying, all part of the struggle of feeling acceptance on that bus. Was that, wow, this is different? Or am I ever going to get that feeling that I had at Massac? Can I get that at McCracken?
Well, I told Coach Haskins, I don't know if I can do this. I don't think I'm a good assistant. He said, you're not. Treat it like it's yours.
Oh.
Well, that ain't totally true because, the final say-so isn't with me. But I feel like they accepted me so well. And Coach, football is still football.
Yeah.
You still got to block and tackle, and I was still involved in both sides of the ball. And so, no, the transition was the only thing that I really didn't like. I didn't totally have say-so on when we did what.
Right.
When we practiced, when we ate, when we left, when we got back. And I didn't totally have say-so on what the kids ate, what they took in school, and that kind of stuff. So I missed some of that.
Sure. Naturally,
Coach, I don't mean this wrong. There's a lot of people can do what me and you do, but we wanted to be in charge too.
Sure.
You
Yeah.
know, and with that blessing comes responsibility.
Of course.
And we wanted that responsibility.
did.
You know,
Yeah,
so I didn't
yeah.
want to have to say, let me check with somebody else about this.
I got you.
I just wanted to do it.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah, that giving responsibilities, to other people is it was learned for me.
me too.
And I had to learn to trust people and let things go and know when to take them back too.
That's right.
Yeah. You're working for FCA now.
I do.
You have an area of Western Kentucky that you.
And Southern Illinois.
Okay.
To a certain, I've been to Massac before, and I've
Yeah.
been to El Dorado for Joe Clark.
Gotcha.
And, speaking to varsity ball teams, Coach,
Yeah.
about Jesus.
Yeah.
And always try to relate it to competition
Yeah.
and fairness and
Yeah.
sport. And it's quite a challenge.
Yeah.
It's a different type of coaching. This has eternal significance,
Amen.
Coach.
That's right.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
And no different, done it a bunch and all, but before you start and get ready to do it, you get that almost kickoff time feeling still.
Yeah.
And I do it with males and females. So I had the McCracken girls basketball team this winter. So
Yeah, that's great.
it's a different animal for me
Good for
too,
you.
know.
You're well suited for that, and I know your faith is big. We'll finish with that in just a second, but you love to hunt and fish, and you're still doing it, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
And as long as I'm able, I want to. And my grandpa had bird dogs, and my dad had bird dogs, and there's not a whole lot of quail anymore. But, I've never had a dog that talked back to me. And the bond is there, and I get to go every day, and it's exercise while you're hunting. You don't got to be quiet. You and I can go and talk the whole time, and the dogs are the big reason. But yes, I really, and my kids, Toby goes with me almost every day now, and my grandkids go, and bird dogs in the pen, and I don't have any other hobbies really.
Yeah.
I don't golf. I don't like doing that, and it's a hobby, but it's fun. So yes, I do.
I grew up a quail hunter with my dad.
Yeah.
And his dad before him, and the bird dogs in the early mornings and the cold fingertips. And
I know.
It's some of my best memories
Me too.
are hunting with my father. And he passed away, and that's I haven't hunted really since. I've gone out and we've released some birds and done that. And that's kind of a nice little throwback for me. But I miss that. I miss those mornings with my dad.
When my dad retired, he pretty well went with me. And doing what you and I do, I was able to go every day.
Yeah.
Last 2 hours a day, the best. And my dad went with me a bunch.
Yeah.
So
I can remember when I was at Flora, we would pack our stuff in our cars, and about 3 or 4 of us would, as soon as the bell rang,
go.
we had to go. We had about an hour and a half before it got dark. We'd go out and hunt a few cubbies, and
Coach,
best.
I had my shotgun in my office at high school.
I know.
Can you imagine that today?
No, I cannot. So I've often said this, that people who do not know what quail hunting is about, but when the dogs are pointing and there's a dog backing a dog and someone's got a flush and you got hunters on both sides, it's the most exciting 6 or 7 seconds in the world.
No doubt.
That covey rise and the sound of that, the fluttering sound of those quail and the shots fired, and
It's just exactly like when the horn blows and we're on the winning end of the ball game.
it is the best.
Same thing.
Until
And your dogs do it.
Yeah.
Just like your players do it.
Watching the dogs is
That's right.
makes
I wouldn't do it without the dogs.
No, I went out with friends without dogs before, and it wasn't the
I
same.
wouldn't go.
It wasn't the
No.
same. So, okay, last thing, family. Family's big, I know, and you and Kathy have been together a long time, and great marriage, great partnership in your profession. Talk about your family for a second.
Well, there she is. She don't have to come up here. I told her yesterday.
Yeah.
She said, "Are you going?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, I'm going."
Awesome.
And the Lord just blessed us, Coach. In high school, I was the quarterback and she was the cheerleader. And my dad and mom taught me, and her dad and mom taught her family is first.
Yeah.
And God ordained us to be in charge of that and the head of that. And we've got 2 boys and a girl, and we still do everything together.
Yeah.
And my grandkids now, are beyond special. I coach them, and it's a blessing.
Yeah.
And I promise you, I've done said this, but coaching their games are no different than coaching against Kerry Martin,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And I'm a generation removed, so I can't take Jake and Toby home and replay the game with them. I kind of got to let them go home with their mom and dad.
Yeah, I
know?
got you.
So,
I got
but
you.
family, yes, such a blessing, and it's a job God gave us, Coach,
Yeah. Amen, brother.
to be the head of that and to lead in the right direction. And you know what's messed up a lot? Because men drop the ball.
Well, I think it frustrates me when a man can lead a football team well, but he forsakes his own family.
No doubt.
And I think, and it happens. And I don't want to sound judgmental because the job can become an obsession. You have to be very careful about that because the pressure and especially at the higher levels of high school, college, and pro, it can become an obsession. It can become the only thing you know, it becomes your idol in some ways. And I think it's a shame because if you can lead that football team well, you should be able to lead your family.
It goes hand in hand.
It does. It really shouldn't be two separate entities.
Yes, but I think what I tell my son, what I have to be careful with is I don't make that ball team and that family my idol.
That's right.
I'm not supposed to do that.
It can.
It can.
It can. I heard a coach one time say he had a mistress, and everyone got quiet in the room, and he goes, "My mistress was football. I spent time with her. I was focused on her. I thought about her. And it didn't have to be another woman. It was just another idol I had, someone else that I."
To answer that question, your wife and that woman, they have to be special because they've never done what we do.
No.
But they have to try to wrap their head around a lot of times our foolishness.
Oh, for sure.
And she'll say something, I don't even hear what she said.
Yeah.
Because she knows where my mind's at, and they did a great article about my wife and your wife. And, that says a lot. And
it does.
I think you gotta be a little weird and it'll be a little different to do what you and I do. But even more so, your kids and your wife have to be more so to follow you.
That's right.
Sometimes to Benton and to Harrisburg when the environment is very hostile.
Yeah, it's tough. Everything we do is public.
Yes.
Our success and failures are public.
It is.
Every fault that we have is visible. So
that's right.
Yeah, I mean it's tough, and they have and where we have the outlet of the game, they just have to be recipients of a lot of negative and positives. My wife would tell you the memories she wouldn't trade, but there's a lot of things she had to deal with when things didn't go well.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I think with you and me, Friday night might have been awful. But usually by Tuesday, maybe Monday afternoon, Tuesday and all, we were back with our team and we were back focused on the next thing.
That's right.
It was okay then.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was okay.
And I needed someone at home that was the rock. While I was bouncing around all over the place, there was someone there.
Me too.
Yeah.
But have you heard a lot? Why in the world did you call that play down on the goal line, Kelly?
Yeah.
I've heard it.
Yeah.
And I said, Kath, you're right. I don't know why I called it.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
Oh, I've been questioned many times.
Me too.
That's up.
Me too.
Well, last thing, when you reflect on your career, because at least in retirement, I've learned I finally get to reflect. I never had time because I was always worried about the next season.
Me too.
What comes to your mind when you think back?
Blessed.
Okay.
God has blessed us, but also too, Coach, you can't get away from. There's so many things I wish I could go back and not a play calling, not that, but you could go back and handle different or do different that you might have directed a kid a little different direction. I'm not sure kids would say that all the time, but I promise you, what you and I did, everybody didn't always like Coach Glass.
Right.
Everybody wasn't always in agreement with what I did, Coach. Everybody didn't get to play quarterback, and everybody didn't get to play running back. But I promise you this in reflection. As a player and a coach, I couldn't have given any more than I had.
Yeah.
I never slacked up on that at all. And I always wanted to try to be sure and say, thank you, Lord.
Amen.
And I mean that. But I think God's going to ask me one of these days, why did you make the score of the game so big?
Yeah.
Have you spent as much time telling Kathy and I have a young adult class now, which means they're in their 20s, and I tell them this. Have I spent as much time telling people that age about Jesus as I have about how to block and tackle? And I reflect on that some.
That's honest.
I wish I'd
appreciate
done
that.
a little bit more, but Coach, we had to win. It was our livelihood.
Yeah, it was.
And
I appreciate all the work. I know you're still continuing to work in your church. Huge influence. Appreciate the FCA work you're doing. And I just want to say, man, you've been a great role model. You've been a great example for a lot of people, a lot of coaches. The impact you've had is immeasurable. And
well, Coach, you had a great influence on me too.
thanks, Kelly.
The guy that was doing it the right way and the guy that was on the cutting edge is Kerry Martin. In '96, when you won it all and you beat us, who was already in 2x2?
Yeah. Well,
You were.
thanks.
You
Yeah.
were.
Well, I appreciate that.
And, I like 4-3, but I don't know that I ever figured out when you get in 2x2, what do? Do you bump your outside backers out? And so, Kerry Martin was always on the cutting edge and always very respected. And he was a gentleman coach too. There's some people that win that you don't really root for them and want them to win. But there's some people that win that unless you're playing them, you get behind them and you want them to win. And that's why I stood on the sideline with you at the state championship game.
Well, I appreciate our friendship.
Me too.
The competition we had, I think, made us both better.
Did I beat you one year?
Yeah.
I thought maybe.
94.
We overtime, we pulled some. It was divine intervention. And my quarterback run the ball down the field about 30 feet and pitched it to somebody else. And
Yeah.
I thought, where'd that come from?
Yeah, that's
It's
all
just
right.
meant to
It was
win.
a great game.
It was.
Yeah, but thanks for being here. Thanks for
man.
bringing your bride. And thank you for sharing. I knew you would be great. I appreciate everything, Kelly. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, buddy. And let's stay in touch better.
Amen. Let's
life
do.
takes us different directions.
Let's do.
Stay in touch.
I want to thank you for watching and listening. I want to thank Ross for being here, and Abby, who's not here today but usually is, and for all he does. Don't forget wedding videos. This guy can take care of you. Thanks, Crown Brew. Thank you to my buddies at Adrenaline, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks to Coach Glass for an awesome interview, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.